You know, if someone sat in a shed for 3 hours, I'd think, God, am I that bad that he'd rather sit in a smelly wooden shed than sit with me?
No,
and if you get someone there, just go upstairs
it's like
or
a little
something.
hobby if they want to tinker with something like an old watch or they want to take engines apart. No, they do. They like to dismantle things, don't they?
I'm with you on the golf course. My day was, you know, his shed is definitely the golf course. My dad had a shed when we were growing up. In fact, he's just fixed the roof of our shed.
Has he?
Yes, he has. God bless him. But when I was, it's like that one. When I was growing up, you didn't like going to the shed to go and get your bikes out because there was always like some dead animal carcass hanging up. You know, like pheasants and things like that he'd been... That was his hobby, so it was a bit scary going in the shed.
You see, I think men should definitely have a hobby or be good with their hands. You see, I'm very pleased to say I've got 4 decorators in my house as we speak. Oh yes.
They've all just gone, whoa, do you hear that?
I know. They're probably watching
Turn the telly off and get the paintbrush going.
Yes, they're probably watching this. What are you doing watching this show? They came in yesterday and he says, where would you like us to start stripping, Miss McDonald? He says, about there will be fine.
Listen, one of the weekly men's magazines has actually commissioned some research into the lovely shed, and here are some shed statistics. Apparently, these are tips for shed owners. Buy a good set of tools.
Oh, yes.
Of course.
Erect some shelves.
My Ray can do that.
Can he?
Yes.
Lay good foundations. Keep a radio in your shed. Celebrity fans of sheds, Zoe Ball has a pink-painted girly retreat.
I said you can get really nice sheds now.
Yes.
And it's
More
not
girly
just
ones.
you know, it's not just a wood. I can't believe I'm sitting here at lunchtime talking about sheds. But anyway.
And
You can have a pagoda.
celebrity chef James Martin has turned his shed into a designer kitchen. Apparently he hasn't got a big enough kitchen in his house. And Philip Pullman wrote his trilogy, His Darkest Materials, in his garden shed.
That's what I mean, you see.
There you
His
go.
darkest materials. You
Men
need
need
to go in a
hobbies.
shed to think dark thoughts.
You should have a shed.
No,
I
she's
should
got
have a
dirty
shed.
mind, Colleen.
Yeah.
I'm going home to buy a shed. I am.
And if you feel strongly about sheds or any of today's topics, don't forget we want to hear from you. You can email us at the usual address. Right now, next week, MPs are set to address the abortion laws in what could be the most significant shake-up of the legislation since the practice was first made legal more than 40 years ago. The proposals include scrapping the current requirement for 2 doctors to approve a termination, as well as giving nurses the authority to prescribe abortion drugs to be taken by women alone in their own homes. So, is it a good thing that the process is made as easy as possible and hopefully less traumatic for women, or is this sending the wrong message at a time when abortions amongst young girls are at an all-time high?
Well, I think this is a good thing, and I know I'm going to get slammed down on this panel, but I think a woman who... I'd rather have a woman have a termination than an unwanted pregnancy, and we have got so many young teenage pregnancies in this country as well, that I think if they have got the chance to get rid of it with just a tablet, then I think it's a good idea to go to a nurse and get that done, instead of having to go through the whole rigmarole of the 2 doctors thing, then the examinations, and then everything else that they have to go through. I think we do have a problem.
Why do they get pregnant in the first place? That's
people do.
Yeah, but there's no need, and a lot of young girls now are using abortion as a contraceptive pill. They're doing untold damage to their insides, and we're back to, you know, we've got... It's suddenly like there's
that, Linda. I don't think any
not.
woman would go through an abortion as a birth control.
You're wrong.
I really don't.
You're wrong, and I think statistics show. I think you're wrong. A lot of people use it now, and I've got friends who've had 2 or 3 abortions and then wonder when they get into their 40s why they can't conceive. Well,
I think they wouldn't go through... I don't think they'd use it as a contraception if it was how it used to be, which was going into hospital and staying overnight. But if it's the case of you just take a pill when you're 6 or 7 weeks...
So this is for pregnancies only up to 9 weeks old. It involves taking 2 pills and they're to be taken 48 hours apart, and basically they induce...
a miscarriage.
Yes, that's exactly what happens to them.
So it's not as traumatic as the hospital situation. So maybe younger kids would go, oh, I'm pregnant, oh, it doesn't matter, I'll just run and take a pill. So I'm kind of in between the 2 of you, really. I know what you're saying.
I'd rather have that than an unwanted pregnancy and somebody else on maybe benefits that we've all got to pay for.
No, I'd rather they spent the money
that's why I think
organising
a lot
and
would do it.
educating people into going on the pill or using birth control. And the other thing is, you know, it's getting more and more, it seems to me, that the respect for life is gone.
Yes, but it's not true. I mean,
Well, it is true. If you're going to have a pill, go on, get rid of it.
But I know a couple of people whose lives have probably been turned round because they were so scared to tell their parents, in my day anyway, they were so scared to tell the parents that they'd become pregnant that if they'd have had this tablet to go, then they'd have had a completely different life to what they've got now. if they've been given that chance. A lot of it, you see, we're thinking about the minority again. We always think that every girl out there is going to just go off and do this, but I think it's a very serious thing when you find yourself with a pregnancy that you don't want.
Yeah, but Jane, to be honest, I think nowadays you would find somebody to talk to you, and if there's a young girl who's too scared to tell her parents that she's pregnant, that's a terrible situation. But there is help out there for that. Really, there is, I think, nowadays.
But isn't that the scary situation for someone like, you know, Colleen, who's got a 7-year-old now, and obviously it's a long way off for me. I've got a daughter who, you know, one day these issues will come into our lives. I can't bear the thought of my daughter being able to go to a nurse and be given a pill that's going to induce an abortion.
Well, what I can't bear,
know nothing about
what I can't bear the thought of is my daughter going, oh well, I'll just go to a nurse and get a pill. That easy. That's what I can't bear. You know, I would rather her be at that situation where she needs to sit down and say, look, Mum, this has happened. I mean, I would hope that we would have that relationship anyway where she could.
You're lucky if you've got that
relationship.
Well, no,
I'm hoping I've got that relationship. I don't know. You know, when girls get to that situation, they're scared that they're going to disappoint you and let you down and don't want to tell you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, I just don't want her to grow up in this culture of, oh, well, if I get pregnant, there's this pill now that you can take that 2 days later, it's no big deal, everyone does it, you can just get it from a nurse. I don't want her to grow up with that mentality. I want her to grow up with going, this has happened, and I can't believe it's happened, and I want her to be able to think about all of the consequences of her actions, whereas now you don't really need to think about the consequences because you just take, it's like having a headache and taking a tablet.
Because, well, there really are no consequences
there aren't
in your life immediately there and then.
Yeah.
As you say, Linda, if you do, you know, if you induce these sort of at-home abortions, however many times, what kind of damage are you doing?
You know, if you're going to debate things, we all want things to be better for everybody. Of course we do, and MPs are but why aren't they finding a way, for instance, of introducing contraception, long-term contraception, you know?
You can have implants now, can't you, that last
yes,
month?
Teaching young girls to come to school with their mothers and saying, look, you know, this is the fact, these are the facts of life. Please, please do this, and let's not involve... You know, and I say this, as a young girl, you know, when you're faced with it, I went on the pill and I had this terrible letter from my mum and dad, you know, saying, we're so disappointed in you and how could you do this to us? And I, a few years later, said to my mum, I was trying to do the right thing because I refused to get pregnant. You know, I refused to involve anybody else in my mistakes, if you like. But I just think it's just another way of chipping away at everything that used to be held sacred. And you don't have to be wildly religious or whatever, but it's life, you know, it's life we're talking about.
It is life, and oh, I'm going to keep my mouth shut here.
Well, if you need help or advice on this issue, please go to our website where you'll find a number of very useful contacts. Now, after the break, we'll be catching up with Tracy Ann Oberman, and there'll be an exclusive performance full of funk from soul sensation Chaka Khan. And here's who's joining us tomorrow. Part of today's Loose Women. Now, before we introduce our next guest, we've got time for a few emails.
We have. This is from Helen in Earlsfield. She says, I'm trying to embrace the cafe culture, but find myself in a cafe ordering a nice big cup of tea. But it costs over £2. Are we mad, she says. And also, they charge extra for a decaf. She's right, you see. They should charge less because there's less in it.
Says, I just wanted to say we've always had a cafe culture. When I was a little girl, my mum and I would visit the tea houses and have milk and a dash. Now they call it latte.
Oh, it's frothy coffee, weren't it? Charlotte in Hall, Sheds. See, my type of girl, this. My grandparents would argue every hour of the day, so my mum and auntie decided to get them a relaxing holiday. But if anything, they came back worse than they went away. We read an article in a magazine about how sheds can save marriages, so that was that. One shed later, and they're happier than ever now, even though they'd never admit that the shed actually saved their marriage.
Oh,
there you go. It works. It works.
Right now, our next guest knows how to deal with her male co-stars. In EastEnders, she cemented her relationship with Dirty Den by burying him in concrete. Her latest project as the sex-obsessed wife of writer D.H. Lawrence in new play On the Rocks has won her rave reviews in another tempestuous pairing. But not long ago, she fulfilled a lifelong ambition by capturing David Tennant's Doctor Who.
Welcome to Torchwood.
That's such a far son, Lila.